Social justice warriors, SJWs, the regressive left, they are destroying the hacker community, at least in my opinion. And I have some things to back up this claim. For those that aren't familiar, I've been a hacker basically my entire life. I built my first computer when I was 8 years old. It's not just about computers. I built gadgets and gizmos. I once built a remote control can of green tea. The video is actually on the internet. It's Timcast's CanBot. And at a hackerspace, I took a can of green tea and I put motors on it so that it could vibrate across the table. I have a lot of friends who are into the computer hacking scene and general hacking scene, building things. I work with drones, so this is near and dear to my heart. I've been attending DEF CON, which is one of the largest hacker conventions in the world, for the past several years, but admittedly, this past August, I skipped it. There's also another event called Hackers on Planet Earth, which I've been to once before. I skipped this past one. And I'll give you a perfect example of why I was right to skip it. Apparently a man showed up to Hope this year, as Hackers on Planet Earth, with a Trump hat on. And people started screaming that he was a Nazi and things of that nature, and someone grabbed his hat. When staff, I wasn't there, but when staff apparently said, look, he's allowed to be here, ask questions, and say what he wants to say, there was a huge uproar about harassment and intimidation, and people were saying they don't want to come here anymore, and my response is, good, stop coming. Like, if you can't tolerate someone with bad opinions coming and asking questions, then why are you here in the first place? But more importantly, when I was at DEF CON last year, I was getting, not this past August, but in 2017, I was getting, there were people posting on Twitter that I was there. I was getting veiled threats, and I had to constantly look over my shoulder. And what you have to consider with DEF CON is that you're in a space full of hackers, people who have clever ways of breaking into your computer, hacking your passwords and things like that. So I'm already on high alert security-wise. People have been trying to hack into my stuff basically nonstop for the past several years. So going to DEF CON and putting myself in a situation where they're highlighting my presence when I was doing nothing, I was walking around minding my own business, and I'm seeing tweets pop up. People are putting my name, Tim asterisk M, it's T asterisk M, P, asterisk L, so that I can't search for myself or that people can't find me. It's what they do. They'll put someone's name, but they'll change a vowel with an asterisk, so it's hard to search for them. And I'm getting these veiled threats, and I thought, you know what? I know a lot of the organizers. I'm friends with organizers from most of these hacker conventions. And I talked to them and I said, what do we really do about it, right? I understand I have a lot of followers. I'm fairly, I'm like, I don't want to say I'm high profile, but I'm high profile enough that it causes me issue, and I take my security very seriously. And so I said, maybe it's just on me that I shouldn't be here if these kinds of people are going to cause me problems, because there's nothing that they're called the goons, the staff at DEF CON. There's nothing they can do about it, right? I can say, hey guys, heads up, this is happening, and they're like, what do we do? And I'm like, nah, I feel you, man. I don't know what to do either. Maybe I just have to leave, because these people are making it unwelcome for people, who hold different political views. Actually, for the most part, like, my political views are still on the left. I just don't like the authoritarians. I don't like them targeting people. So I ended up, just, you know what? I'm not going to go anymore. And again, I was right, because you look at what happened at DerbyCon. So there's this post they made. DerbyCon, every beginning has an end. They've made their announcement that 2019 will be their last year. And the reason for it, though they don't say SJW, they say it's a small vocal minority. What do they say? There's a small yet vocal group of people creating negativity, polarization, and disruption with the primary intent of self-promotion to advance a career for personal gain and for more social media followers. Individuals that would have us be judge, jury, and executioner for people they have issues with outside of the conference that has nothing to do with the conference itself. Now, DerbyCon's been very professional. I don't know what their official stance is, but I have reason to believe, based on sources, friends of mine, and people I've been in communication with about what's going on, that they're specifically referring to social justice warriors, and there's a reason for it. There's this document, which is rather hard to read. It's called Timeline of SJW BS at Tech Conferences. Now, this is just a Google Doc that's been shared. I've pasted it into a different doc to make it easier to read. And what you kind of see here is, although there aren't that many instances, right? I think there's only maybe like 20 over the past several years. They're increasingly becoming more and more high profile and unhinged. But also, you can see the frequency is increasing every single year. So at the start of the list, 2012, there's just one. This is a red card, yellow card, green card. I believe I was actually at DEF CON when this happened. Basically, somebody had 3 color cards, and they were giving out a green card to men who were behaving appropriately, yellow cards if they were questionable, and red if they were a creeper. And the problem with this is that It pissed off a lot of people who are like, dude, come on, don't bring that stuff here. If you have a problem with someone, just tell them and you know, chill out. But it also caused a problem with people on the left who are saying, why should women have to do this, right? The point is, no matter what you do, you're going to be wrong because people are just looking for a reason to be angry. In 2012, there was one incident. In 2013, there were two. 2013 had Donglegate. This was where two guys were sitting at a presentation, and a dongle, which is just something you like plug into the back of your computer, someone mentioned something about forking a repo. Forking a repo means if someone has a repository, it's a code base, and you take it and then make it your own, you've forked the code off in a different direction. It's supposed to be like complementary. Well, apparently some guy on stage said something about, you know, his code and what he's working on, and this guy goes, man, I'd love to fork his repository, which is supposed to be innuendo, like a joke, but also a compliment, saying like, oh, that's a good code. This woman, Audrey Richards, turned around, took a picture of the guys, and got all angry, saying it was misogynistic and sexist. And they actually have a quote here that kind of exemplifies how bad it started getting in 2013. So this was, I believe this was from an interview. Someone getting fired is pretty bad, I said. I know you didn't call for him to be fired, but you must have felt pretty bad. Now, what happened was one of the guys got fired, and she ultimately got fired because she created a problem for her company. But here's what she said. Not too bad, she said. She thought more and shook her head decisively. He's a white male, I'm a black Jewish female. He was saying things that could be inferred as offensive to me. Sitting in front of him, I do have empathy for him, but it only goes so far. If he had Down syndrome and he accidentally pushed someone off a subway, that would be different. I've seen things where people are like, Adria didn't know what she was doing by tweeting it. Yes, I did. She knew what she was doing. He's a white male, and she had no problem getting him fired simply because he made a silly joke to his friend at a conference. That's where things were getting bad, right? This was another instance of like it's around the time the culture war started blossoming, I suppose. Gamergate was one of the big kicking off points. But for me, I'm only like peripherally a gamer, right? For the most part, I'm a hacker. So there's some overlap. I do play video games. You'll see I talk about video games on this channel every so often. Then there's another issue. In August 2014 at B-Sides Las Vegas, which I believe I was also at. B-Sides is a conference that happens outside of DEF CON. There was a tower of condoms. A Gawker writer got mad and got sex negative because there was a tower of condoms. Somehow this was said to make women feel uncomfortable, disregarding that there were a ton of women helping build the tower, and there was also a large gay contingent at the Vegas conference that might want to promote safe sex. There's so many instances where men and women of the community come together to do something fun and funny, and one social justice warrior, you know, this regressive leftist, will freak out in an effort to promote themselves and push their brand, and it causes problems for everybody. Yoga pants incident. Someone got mad about #yoga pants. Lambda Conference and Curtis Yevon. Now this one is interesting because somebody was a speaker, and there were statements Curtis Yevon made about race and IQ. Some other speakers pulled out of Lambda Conference. Apparently, the previous year, Yarvin had been disinvited from Urbit at the Strange Loop. I'm no fan of people who are pushing this kind of extreme ideology. For the most part, I have read a decent amount about race and IQ, and I think the people who take one side or the other on the nature and nurture argument are missing a big piece of the puzzle. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a scientist, but my understanding, based on reading as much as possible, is that it's marginally inconclusive. I don't want to get into discussion about race and IQ though, but I think nature and nurture both play a role in things for the most part. But we'll move on. Article about being microaggressed at Lockpick Village. Now here's another important one, DEF CON Hacker Jeopardy. This is another perfect example of how these people are just trying to ruin things. Hacker Jeopardy had categories like dick and pussy and answers about porn. They were scantily clad women bringing men beer. However, this is what the story, so here's CNET. These people are being aided and abetted by the media who don't care about what's actually going on. They disregarded that they were scantily clad men bringing women drinks and that a woman won the game. It wasn't just women, it was dick and pussy, porn, and men and women giving drinks out. But they only choose one thing and then create a problem. Basically, I don't want to read through all of these. It goes on. But one of the most egregious, and where we find ourselves now with DerbyCon shutting its door, is the Boobies on Board fiasco. So this is the official statement where I'll post a link to this in the description. I don't necessarily want to read through the whole thing, but they basically, you know, I showed you what they said. It's people who are self-interested, who are causing problems. What's interesting about this? So first let me tell you about the boobies thing, right? So we have this photo. Basically, my understanding is that this was a community board where people could come and write something about something they like. And someone wrote boobies. And someone wrote boobies hashtag me too. Silly joke. Well, apparently, according to this document, a woman had a mental breakdown because some people wrote boobies twice and me too'd on the What Helps You With Stress board outside the mental health workshop at DerbyCon. Massive overreaction. Would someone complain if penises had been written instead? She also irrationally said at Breaksec Podcast was promoting their podcast by covering up the words with their stickers. No staff covered up the words to make her happy, and the stickers were the most convenient way to do without scraping the board. She apparently went on to whine to Walmart, a sponsor, because they had beard combs as swag, but nothing specific for women, and also whined at the Paul.com guys for their hack naked stickers that had a mud flap girl on them. They also had one with a pudgy man on them. They always disregard that these things are relatively balanced. Lindsay also went on to accuse Hacks for Pancakes of white feminism. Excuse me. So my understanding is this is the incident that led to basically the event shutting down. And again, this is not from their official statement because the organizers, in my understanding, are being very professional. But this is from me talking to some sources, and this could be wrong. Don't take. I've talked to some people behind the scenes, and this is what they've explained to me, that this is the reason why they decided to shut down. Again, it could be wrong, totally wrong. But what they said was, in reference to someone, so is it, okay, it said, this year we had to handle issues that honestly, as an adult, we would never expect to have handle from other adults. Conferences in general have shifted focus to not upsetting individuals and having to police people's beliefs, politics, and feelings. Instead of coming to a conference to learn and share, it's about how loud of a message a person can make about a specific topic, regardless of who they tear down or attempt to destroy. To put it in perspective, we had to deal with an individual that was verbally and mentally abusive to a number of our volunteer staff and security to the point where they were in tears. This is not what we signed up for. Admittedly, we had no idea how to handle this person, and in fear of repercussion of removing this person, allowed them to stay at the conference in order to not upset the masses. The best we could do was just apologize for other apologies and apologize more for others' actions. This is just one example of many we have had to deal with over the past few years, and each year becomes increasingly harder for us to handle. We do everything as a conference to ensure the safety, security, and go above and beyond that of others. Maybe that puts us on a different level, where something that would normally not be an issue explodes into a catastrophic situation on social media. Who knows? What we do each year, it gets harder and harder. And that's why they said 2019 will be the last year of DerbyCon. My understanding is that it was this woman who was going to their sponsors. I asked someone who was associated with many hacker conferences, and I said, why don't you just throw these people out? They're clearly disruptive. And I was told, because they go to sponsors, they go on social media, and the media and the mobs support them. Look at what happens when these weird situations occur. You have these stories being written about. Like, what's a good example? The Audrey Richards thing, I think, is a really good example of people actually jumping on to support Audrey Richards. Okay, so The Guardian writes about it. You've got Gawker writing about it. You've got Slate writing about it. What happens is people in media, the DEF CON Hacker Deputy, CNET writes a story, what do dicks, dildos, women stripping have to do with cybersecurity? Not realizing that DEF CON is more of just a fun community gathering for people where people are silly and they're adults. The media supports this, and then hackers mob on and companies get scared and pull out. That's what happens. You can look at what happened with Gillette the other day, putting up this commercial. They don't seem to care that they may have one of the most downvoted commercials in history. Gillette, for some reason, they make shaving products, decided to get overtly political. This is a huge issue. And now we can see a hacker convention is being shut down. So this video is going on a bit long because I gotta say, this is extremely personal to me, right? When I went to DEF CON about a year and a half ago for 2017 and started dealing with these fringe wackaloons, I was shocked. I was like, no way, dude. How is it the hacker community, people who believe in data love, the right to the free exchange of information, these are the same people that were hacking into Middle Eastern government servers to exfiltrate data to support the revolution because they believe in transparency. These are the same people that have supported WikiLeaks. Now they've got people there who are supporting deep state intelligence. There are people there who are denouncing what WikiLeaks has done. And again, I'm not trying to overtly defend WikiLeaks. I'm just saying, like, it's just flipped to a ridiculous degree. Now, my understanding is that DEF CON has actually not been subject to a lot of these things because DEF CON is very, very big, but the smaller events are being hit really, really hard. And I knew when it came to DEF CON, with what I was experiencing, it's probably smart if I just don't go to these things anymore. For one, I don't want to create problems for my friends who actually help organize a lot of these events. I've known some of these people for years. We talk regularly on Facebook. I see them every so often in New York. I've been to ridiculous birthday parties with hackers doing the craziest things you can imagine, and we meet up when we go to these hacker conventions. Admittedly, I'm not like best friends with most of these people. They're more of a tight-knit community than I am with them. But I'm friends with a lot of them. A lot of them follow me on Twitter. We talk fairly often. But now there's a weird thing happening where the organizers, the people behind the scenes, are fairly anti-regressive, right? They believe in free information. They believe in free inquiry. They believe in freedom of speech, and they think it's fun to make memes and jokes. Who does that sound like? It doesn't sound like the left. What's happening is these hackers who have been left libertarians their whole life, opposing authoritarianism, opposing government intervention and things like this, fighting on the side of justice and the little guy, are now being called Nazis, are now being infiltrated by authoritarians who believe they're on the right side. And these people target sponsors and freak them out and force them to pull out. So here's what happens. I don't know exactly why they're shutting down. They've said why. They can't deal with it. But my understanding, based off talking to a few different people, is that they're organizers who put these events together. And when they come out and say, we cannot allow these people to keep doing this, disrupting our events, and attacking people for, say, having a Trump hat, then people target them personally. You know I get death threats. You know I have people targeting me, threatening me. At my last apartment, someone sent me an email with my home address. That was it. There was just got a blank, it was an email, I had my address in it. And it was like, they're veiled threats. I get them all the time. I got threats when I go to Berkeley. But I understand that, right? I've got a bunch of followers. I know what's going to happen when I make videos like this. But for these people who aren't extremely high profile, who just want to meet up with their friends, all of a sudden now, people are calling their places of work, they're calling the people who sponsor their events, and their lives are being threatened simply because they wanted to have a get-together with their buddies and talk about things they're passionate about. So apparently now what's going to happen is it's all going private. Many of these events are... I don't know what's going to happen to... look, I don't think most of the events are going to shut down. DEF CON's way too profitable and it's rather corporate. But for something like DerbyCon, it's unfortunate it is because it's a tight-knit community. And what I'm told now is that you're probably going to start seeing private events pop up that are invite-only. Because you have to do something to weed out the authoritarians who are trying to destroy all of these events. And I guess that's what's happening. So, you know, it's become... I'll say this. I'll say one more thing, because this is a long video. The culture war, so many people act like it's not that big a deal. Even in this DerbyCon post, they say it's a small vocal minority. And I believe it's fair to say they are a small vocal minority, but you have to realize they're becoming increasingly powerful. They're infecting various areas of media, academia. It's spreading. Kirsten Gillibrand said the future is intersectional, right? She's literally talking about this. It's a dog whistle to these people, okay, to use their nomenclature. But what ends up happening is, I'll use David Pakman as an example, who's repeatedly said, yeah, these people aren't that big a deal, the left isn't that bad, until they come for you, until they come for your community. Why is it that so many gamers are so upset about the infiltration of this ideology into video games? Well, you want to mind your own business. You want to be respectful. You want to have fun. Admittedly, there are toxic gamers, for sure. There are toxic men at DerbyCon, for sure. Of course, they should be called out, no problem. But what happens when these fringe bullies show up and threaten you and threaten your livelihood? It becomes all too real. For me, Gamergate, I have no idea what was even going on because I'm not a hardcore gamer. I don't play video games every day. I don't track most of the news. I wouldn't call myself a casual gamer because I've played. There's a bunch of games that I will buy like pre-release, like a pre-order, and I've played Magic the Gathering my whole life. So I'm a bit above a casual, but definitely not like hardcore. I don't play games all the time. I'm not in a community. So when this stuff started happening, I was kind of like, oh, it's interesting to see what's happening, man. That's crazy. But then when you see your community, the hacker community, now reeling because of these insane people, you start to get worried. I'll say this to anybody who thinks it's not a problem. Just wait. Just wait until they come into your space and they start shutting down events you like, threatening your friends, and trying to destroy your livelihood. And you see the commercials popping up. You see the politicians espousing it. Then realize it's only a matter of time until your community is gone. And that's why this freaks people out. Anyway, I'm going to end it here because it's just a long video. Thanks for hanging out. I'll have a video up at 4 p.m. and I will track any updates on the story if they happen. So thanks for hanging out. I'll see you guys later today.